Joe King walks out on stage and says, "Hello, yes, my name's Joe King. I'm not joking, though I prefer to be called Juris Dr. King. Okay, so yes, the Screen Actors Guild has joined the Writers Guild by going on strike, and I promise to cover that more in an upcoming episode. But I did want to briefly point out that I have recently said on this show that I supported Robert F. Kennedy's candidacy, in comparison to Joe Biden's at least, in 2024. I can't get into the entire context because it could cause YouTube to remove my video based on COVID misinformation. But recently, RFK Jr. has been charged by the media with saying something in relation to COVID that was anti-Semitic. We at the Joe King Show stress that we are unapologetically pro-Semitic. We believe that RFK Jr. was espousing a controversial theory regarding COVID without saying that he himself supported that theory. One of the reasons I like RFK in comparison to Biden, other than not being senile, is that he is open-minded. He is willing to bring up controversial subjects that others would shy away from, and we appreciate that here. That said, we at this show do not support the theory that RFK espoused. We just like that he's not senile and open-minded. We are in full support of the Jewish people, and we even try to have Moses on the program, but he's represented by that burning bush that won't return my phone calls. Okay, but rest easy, we are entirely and unapologetically pro-Semitic here. Okay? Okay, very good. Now, the following interview is near and dear to my heart, being a big NBA fan, Kobe Bryant. I'm a huge Bulls fan, so I initially didn't like Kobe because I didn't like the comparisons to my hero MJ. But through the years, Kobe won me over because he didn't get by on just his talent. He was one of the hardest workers on this planet at working at his craft. And if there's one thing I respect above all else, other than being a good person, it's effort. King walks off stage and onto another stage, sits at a seat behind the desk and says, "Please welcome to the program one of the greatest players in NBA history, 5-time NBA champion, Kobe Bryant." Kobe Bryant emerges from behind a curtain and waves at the audience. Applause, applause, applause. Bryant walks towards King's desk and takes a seat next to the desk. King, welcome to the program, Kobe. Bryant, thanks for having me, Joe. King, now you were born in 1978 to Pam and Joe Bryant, with your father a member of the Philadelphia 76ers at the time of your birth. Bryant, his nickname was Jelly Bean, yeah? King, okay, and that's how you got the middle name Bean. Bryant, that's right. King, and I didn't know this until I read your Wikipedia page, that you were brought up in the Catholic faith, not unlike my original ego. Bryant, correct. King, you weren't an altar boy though, I bet, huh? Bryant, nope, I was too busy playing basketball. King, very good. Now, when you were 6, your dad transferred his professional basketball career to Italy, so the family moved there. Bryant, that's right. I got accustomed to the lifestyle over there and learned to speak fluent Italian. King, very good. Now at 13, your family moved back to Philadelphia. Bryant, yeah, that was tough. It was a tough adjustment making new friends and learning the American culture after spending so much time overseas. King, okay, though I'm sure you became pretty popular rather quickly in high school as you made the varsity team at Lower Merion as a freshman. Bryant, I guess you could say that, but I was always kind of guarded from my earlier experiences in moving back. I always kind of considered myself an outsider. The star basketball players are pretty popular. Okay, by the time you were a junior, you averaged 31, 10, and 5, were an All-American, got serious recruitment from the top college basketball programs. But after Kevin Garnett became the first player of import since Moses Malone to go pro right from high school, it became an option you eventually chose to follow. Bryant, I knew the NBA was where I wanted to be and where I was going to be eventually no matter what. So I decided that if I was going to be a first-round pick, there was no point in wasting any time in college ball when I thought I could be a professional right away. Okay, very good. So your senior year, you won state, averaging 31, 12, and 7, were named both the Naismith and Gatorade National Player of the Year, and took R&B singer Brandy to her prom. Not a bad senior year. Bryant, of course, I was always about winning, so winning state meant everything to me at the time, so it was a great year, yeah? Okay, did Brandy put out on your date? Bryant, come on, man, a gentleman never tells. Okay, very good. Now, the Lakers general manager, Jerry West, wanted to trade Vlade Divac to free up space to sign Shaq. So the day before the '96 draft, one of the handful of best drafts ever, by the way, the Charlotte Hornets agreed to trade their 13th pick to the Lakers for Divac. And Wes had the Hornets select you, and then they made the trade.
Bryant, when I was real young, the Lakers were my favorite team, so getting traded to them was very exciting. It was like a dream come true.
Okay, now wait a minute. We all know you were a huge MJ fan.
Bryant, of course.
Okay, so who did you root for in the '91 NBA Finals?
Bryant. Maybe that was the only time I rooted against the Lakers.
Okay, now as a rookie in the NBA, you became the second youngest player to ever play an NBA game, but mostly saw limited playing time behind guards Eddie Jones and Nick Van Exel.
Bryant, I was dying to play more, but I learned a lot and still had to learn the NBA game, so I think that time sitting was beneficial to my career.
Okay, now in '97, in the second round of the playoffs of your rookie year, you faced the Utah Jazz, who would eventually go on to lose to the Bulls in the finals after Jordan's game winner in Game 1 and famous flu game in Game 5. But against you guys in Game 5, Shaq fouled out and the team was short other players and you were forced into action. And you shot 4 air balls at the end of the game as the Jazz ended up winning the game and the series.
Bryant, I didn't have the legs yet. Being a rookie, I wasn't used to that many games. Every shot was on line, but they were short. So over the off-season, I changed my training regimen and got stronger so that never happened again.
Okay, now your second season in '98, you still came off the bench, but you averaged 15 points per game, were runner-up for Sixth Man of the Year, and became the youngest player ever voted as a starter in the All-Star game.
Bryant, that was a pretty special accomplishment to know that I was so appreciated by the fans to be voted in as an All-Star starter.
Okay, very good. Now, you then made it to the Western Conference Finals, but lost to the Jazz yet again.
Bryant, I was only 19, and that Jazz team was on a mission for sure. They came up short against the Bulls again, but they were as close to being a championship team as you can be without actually winning it.
Okay, now your third season, Van Exel and Jones were gone, and you became a full-time starter, averaging just under 20 points per game. But your team was beat by the Spurs in the second round.
Bryant, that Spurs team went on to win the title. It was clear we needed some more championship experience around Shaq and I.
Okay, and you got that when Phil Jackson was hired as coach for the 2000 season.
Bryant, when Phil came in, everything changed for me with how I viewed the game. I learned about the spirituality and the mindfulness that comes with the game. I learned how to put myself aside and let go of my ego and play effortless basketball. And that approach to the game was really something that separated me from the pack.
Okay, very good. And you went on to win the championship that year, highlighted by your Western Conference Finals Game 7 comeback against the Blazers, punctuated by your alley-oop to Shaq, and then your game-winning tip-in in Game 4 of the NBA Finals.
Bryant, those moments were so huge for me and the team. Shaq had fouled out of Game 4 just like he did my rookie year against the Jazz, but this time I had my legs and was able to hit the shots to win the game.
Okay, and the next year in 2001, your point per game was 28.5, and you guys went 15-1 in the playoffs and were out to your second straight NBA championship, where you averaged 29, 7, and 6 in the playoffs.
Bryant, I felt like the 01 team was the best team I was on. And I wish we could play the best of the Bulls teams. Mike said he was at his best in '91, or the best of the Magic Lakers teams. But unfortunately, we can't do that. But for me, that was the best team ever.
Okay, Michael may have been best in '91, but no way you're beating the '96 Bulls. Pippen, Rodman, and Kukoc were all arguably at their best that season.
Bryant, who's guarding Shaq?
Okay, we had Longley.
Bryant, come on, man. No way they could have handled Shaq.
Okay, if you could even get it to Shaq, okay, Ron Harper, Jordan, Pippen, and Rodman, it's about as good as a defensive foursome as you can find, and they would have swarmed your wings. But anyway, I digress. The following year in the 2002 season, you guys three-peated, and you became the youngest player ever to have 3 championships.
Bryant, we had some trouble with Sacramento in the conference finals, though.
King, I'll say it went 7 games.
Bryant, that was a tough series. The fans were always mooning us while our bus would pull up to their stadium. So after the Game 7 win, the whole team on the bus moving the fans on our way out of there.
Okay, very good. Now, what happened in 2003 where you guys lost to the San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference semifinals?
Bryant. Well, a number of things. First of all, no matter how great you are, it is so hard to continue to repeat as champs. Look at Mike. I think part of the reason he retired after 93 was because of the mental exhaustion of the three-peat. Everyone is gunning for you every game, and there's all these other great teams doing everything they can to get theirs. And San Antonio, of course, was a great team. Jim's one of the best players to ever play in the NBA, and they still had David Robinson, and Manu and Tony were coming on. And they won 4 titles from 99 to 07. So they were also a great team, and it was just their time.
King. Okay, and then that summer you had the unfortunate situation in Colorado where you were arrested in connection with an investigation of a sexual assault complaint filed by a 19-year-old hotel employee who claimed that you raped her.
Bryant. That was, of course, unfortunate. I did have a sexual encounter with the woman, which was wrong to do since I was married, but it was consensual. It was not rape.
King. Okay, and up until that point, it had all been rainbows and butterflies with the media and the national spotlight with regards to you, but they started to turn on you a bit there.
Bryant, which I understand because of the seriousness of the allegations. It was just such a tough experience that I wish it never happened, but again, the allegations were untrue.
Okay, and I'll say this. Some people may not like me saying this, but I was such a huge Jordan fan, I didn't like a 23-year-old shooting guard who played just like Jordan, winning 3 titles so quickly after he had left the Bulls. Jordan was sacrosanct to me, and I didn't want you or anyone else taking his mantle as greatest of all time. So I wasn't the biggest fan of you, but after that allegation and seeing people turn on you, that's when I couldn't help but become a fan of yours and rooted for you. I just never believed the allegation because you were one of the most famous and popular people on earth, and it just made no sense to me that you would stoop to the level of having to rape a woman when presumably you had women swooning over you all the time. And I'm not trying to belittle sexual assault allegations or say that famous people aren't capable of rape. I don't know, it's just the defense attorney in me, I guess. I just never bought into her particular allegation, and I like siding with people once everyone else has turned against them.
Bryant, well, I appreciate that, but I still got tons of support from countless other fans during that time, and I appreciated it immensely. It helped me out a lot. Okay.
Now, that case was eventually dropped when the accuser refused to testify at trial, but the situation hung over the 2004 Lakers season, where you had a bit of a super team by adding Karl Malone and Gary Payton.
Bryant, we made the finals and were upset by the Pistons. I said before that I'd take the blame for that loss. Maybe because of the Colorado issue, I didn't get the new guys, Gary and Karl, on board enough to be able to execute properly. Plus, Karl had gotten hurt. But still, that one sits with me even now. We should have won that series.
Okay. Okay, and then after the 04 season, everything changed as Phil Jackson's contract was not renewed and Shaq was traded to the Heat.
Right. That's right.
Okay. Now let's get into it with Shaq here, okay? There was much hyped animosity between you two, especially those last 4 seasons together. What was that really all about?
Bryant, well, my biggest thing was always effort. No one outworked me. I was blessed with God-given basketball talent, but I never rested on my laurels. I worked my ass off, including in the off-seasons, especially in the off-seasons, to get better and be the best basketball player I could be. And Shaq, especially after we won in 2000, he had a different mindset. While I was working my ass off in the gym 10 hours a day in the off-season, Shaq took the off-seasons off. So he would come into camp out of shape, and he had to work his way into playing shape during the beginning of the season. And one thing he said later is that he knew he could take that time off because he had me on his team. And in a way that was good for me because I really got to let loose early in the season and play as the alpha on the team during that time and was going for 40 or 50 points. And then when Shaq was eventually ready, Phil was asking me to rein it back in. And I'm thinking, rein it back in? No way. So there was some animosity about that. He wasn't setting the right example, and I was. So the idea that I had to take a back seat to him once he was ready, as great as he was, and he was the most dominant big I ever saw play, it irked me.
Okay. Were you happy to see him traded away then?
Bryant, I was a free agent. I was looking for places in Chicago.
Okay. Oh, God, don't tease me like that. That kills me.
Bryant, I really was. I was looking to leave because I accomplished so much with the 3 titles. But I didn't want, when I retired, people saying that I only won because of Shaq. which is unfair in the first place because Magic never won without Kareem. Michael never won without Scotty. But here I was getting stuck with this argument from the media, and I wasn't okay with that, so I knew I had to play without.
Okay. But unfortunately for me, you never went to the Bulls as the Lakers instead decided to stick with you, the younger player, and trade away Shaq. And the next year, 2005, was a tough season, as you failed to make the playoffs, and your old coach, Phil Jackson, came out with a book that was critical of you.
Bryant, that was my toughest and most frustrating season, no doubt. But I used it as motivation to continue working to make myself better. And I knew it was going to be better. And I was going to prove that the Lakers made the right decision sticking with me.
Okay. The following season, 2006, Jackson came back to coach the Lakers, and you made it back to the postseason, but lost in the first round. But that season will be remembered for your scoring prowess, averaging over 35 a game and scoring 81 points in a single game.
Bryant, Phil let me loose, and he never had to rein me in because Shaq was gone. But it was gratifying to show I could score like that and to win the scoring title because I've been putting in so much work in the gym to refine and improve my game. And the 81-point night was very special. It was on my grandfather's birthday, who had died a few years before, and my grandmother, who had never seen me play because of the nerves she couldn't take it. She flew out to California and came to watch me play for the first and only time that night.
Okay, very good. But then Shaq won the title with Miami that season, later asking you, when freestyling, how his ass tasted.
Bryant, I'm glad he did all that because it gave me extra motivation. That night when Miami won, I went out and ran wind sprints, and it gave me something to chase. It helped give me the motivation to reach and surpass what Shaq had done without me, and I needed that to keep putting in all the work on top of all the work I'd already done.
Okay. The next season, 2007, you changed your number from 8 to 24. Now, Michael wore 23 because he wanted to be half as good as his brother Larry, who wore 45. I always thought that maybe you wore 8 because you wanted to be his third as good as Michael, and that you changed to 24 because you thought you were better than him. Is that what happened?
Bryant, that is why I wanted 24. I wanted 24 out of high school because I wanted to be better than Mike. But George McLeod had the number on the Lakers. And I chose 8 because my number at the Adidas camp that summer was 143, and I added those numbers.
Okay, so do you think you were better than Michael?
Bryant, I think I was the best, but look, I love Mike. He became like a big brother to me. He saw something in me that reminded him of himself, and he took me under his wing. He showed me a lot of things, taught me a lot of things, leadership things, and we had a lot of conversations, great conversations, about a lot of different things throughout the years. But at the end of the day, I'm going to take my best and think I can beat anyone else's best.
Okay, fair enough, but with all due respect, Michael is the greatest to ever play the game.
Bryant, you're entitled to your opinion, that's fine.
Okay, very good. Now, in that 07 season, you won a second straight scoring title, and you were up 3-1 on the Suns in the first round, including you hitting an overtime forcing and then a game-winning shot in Game 4. And despite 50 points in Game 6, you guys lost in 7 games.
Bryant, that series was like the 04 Pistons series. Still does haunt me. We had it won. We were 6 seconds away from winning in Game 6, but came up short.
Okay, now in the 2008 season, despite 2 straight scoring titles, in several seasons where an argument could have been made that you should have won it, you finally won the MVP.
Bryant, that was very special to finally win that after all the work I'd put in my career. And we were finally a championship contender again for the first time since Shaq left, which was the most important thing.
Okay, yes, thanks to the addition of Pau Gasol, you became contenders once again.
Bryant, before they made that trade, I had asked to be traded. And again, I wanted to go to the Bulls.
Okay, I remember that. Don't remind me, my God.
Bryant, it's true. I was concerned the Lakers weren't doing enough to put enough talent around me to win championships, but getting Gasol was enough to do that.
Okay, but you came up short against the Celtics in the 08 finals.
Bryant, that was frustrating, no doubt. To come that close and to not win, with Shaq having won in Miami, it was really tough. I was confident we would be back, but nothing is ever promised, so all I could do was continue to work my ass off, which I did.
Okay, and that work paid off, as in the 2009 season, you guys got back to the finals and defeated the Magic for your 4th championship, and you got your first finals MVP, averaging 32, 6, and 7 in the finals.
Bryant, it was an incredible year. It was very satisfying to win that title. The especially with all the noise of only winning with Shaq. King.
Very good. In the following season, 2010, you made 6 game-winning shots during the regular season, despite a litany of injuries, got the Lakers to the number 1 seed, got through the Western Conference playoffs, and set yourself up for a rematch with the Celtics in the finals.
Bryant. It was kind of a perfect series after they beat us in 08. But I had a bone spur in my ankle. A couple times in the series I had to get it injected because I could barely walk. Plus I had a broken finger. But we won Game 7 after being down 13 in the third quarter. So that was one of really big relief to win. Just getting out of that series alive. If I lost 2 to the Celtics, I would have been miserable. And of course getting one more title than Shaq. So for that it was the most satisfying of all 5 of my championships.
Okay, very good. And you of course got a second finals MVP. But the next season you were swept by the Mavericks.
Bryant, who went on to win the championship. We got to 3 straight finals, which is really hard, especially in the West, which was so loaded then.
Okay, Phil Jackson then left the Lakers again, and you never again reached the NBA Finals.
Bryant, I was continuing to work as hard as I could in the gym to get to number 6, but losing Phil was tough, and we were never able to get back to a championship level as a team.
Okay, during the 2013 season, you suffered a torn Achilles tendon ending your season.
Bryant, yeah, I had many nagging injuries for years up to that point, but I was 34, and that one was just devastating.
Okay, and from there were more injuries ending your 2014 season as well.
Bryant, I was working back from the Achilles in 14 before a tibial fracture in my knee sidelined me again. And in 15, my 19th season, I tore my rotator cuff, ending that season prematurely as well.
Okay, Father Time truly is undefeated, huh?
Bryant, that's right.
Okay, you then played your final season, your 20th with the Lakers in 2016, and though the team struggled, you ended your career with a bang, scoring 60 points in your final game.
Bryant, that was nice, but I played like shit most of that season despite continuing to work hard, but that was a special way to end my career.
Okay, now you did so much besides the 5 titles. You won 2 gold medals for Team USA. You're regarded as one of the greatest to ever play the game. The best player of the 2000s decade. You got both your numbers retired by the Lakers. All-time leading scorer in Lakers history. 4th all-time leading scorer in NBA history. 18 All-Star teams. 15 All-NBA selections. 12-time All-Defensive Team selections. The first guard to play 20 seasons in the NBA. And we're a no-doubt first ballot Hall of Famer.
Bryant, I had a great career, no doubt.
Okay, and before we wrap this up, anything you want to say about your untimely and tragic death?
Bryant, first of all, I gave my life everything I had, so I'm happy that even though I died young, I have no regrets. I did a lot of living and accomplished a lot in my 41 years. But who I feel most for with that tragic accident were the other people on board, especially my daughter Gigi. And her and I miss the rest of my family, my wife Vanessa, my daughters Natalia, Bianca, and Capri.
Okay, and we're running out of time, but we want to thank you for spending so much time with us today to talk about your life. And I want to say, we respect the hell out of you for all the effort you put into your career.
Bryant, thank you. My pleasure, Joe.
Okay, Kobe Bryant, everybody.
Applause, applause, applause.
Okay, that's all the time we have for this show, but tune in the next one where we interview another deceased guest. Until then, I'm Joe King, and I'm not joking.